In-depth journalism in the Memphis community, the Daily Memphian is of Memphis, not just in Memphis, and seeks to tell the stories of this city. TheDailyMemphian.com. Truth in place.
The ruling on the field stands.
We deliver jerseys, funny foam fingers, and everything you need for the game. But what you really get is so much more.
FedEx Delivery.
Game day spirit. What we deliver by delivering.
Welcome back to another edition of the Daily Memphian Memphis Tigers podcast. This is your host, Drew Hill, the Memphis Tigers basketball beat writer. I'm joined, as always, by Memphis Tigers football beat writer, Jonah Jordan. Jonah, what's going on, man?
Oh, nothing much. Just another eventful week in the sports world.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it was not a very good week for the Memphis Tigers basketball team. They traveled to Tulsa on Wednesday and proceeded to get blown out by 40 points. It was ugly pretty much from the start. They were down 10 in the first 10 minutes. The slow starts sort of continued after what looked like they had some answers with a new starting lineup. That turned out to not be the case. The Tulsa zone pretty much swallowed them up on the offensive end, and they didn't get any stops on the defensive end for the first time since mid-November that they gave up 80 points. So it was a struggle all around. There were no answers for that team late in that game. Immediately afterwards, Penny was as frustrated as I have ever seen him as a basketball coach. The players were unhappy, obviously, and people were sort of looking around like, what the hell just happened? Because it's hard to imagine a team that talented losing by that many points, even in a place like Tulsa where they have not beaten Frank Haith on the road. All in all, though, certainly some concerns moving forward. The season is not over by any means. They still project to be an NCAA tournament team right now.
Right now is the key phrase there.
With a lot of opportunities left. And if you look at their resume, so long as NC State and Tennessee sort of continue to stay around where they are right now, which is actually something that's pretty realistic, I think, at this point. They will have as many Quadrant 1 wins already as a lot of the bubble teams last year, and they will be needing some Quadrant 2 wins.
Yeah.
You got to win these easy road games at UCF and those types of games, and they still look like they could be a tournament team.
Here's my question for you. Is it a road thing? Is it them playing on the road?
No, it's not a road thing.
It's just it's a team thing.
I think it's a team thing, yeah.
So, because last year it seemed like it was a road thing. Like at times that team would look different on the road versus at home. So
last year the picture was a lot more clear, though. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like they knew their personnel. They all knew what they were doing. They had a better sense of the rotation, I think. When stuff broke down, they had a guy they could go to. There's a lot of things up in the air with this team right now.
Yeah, and right now I think one of the biggest things that I've worried about, me and you've talked about this on the radio, but now we can go a little bit more in depth. We don't know who the guy is. Like, we know Precious Achiuwa could be
He's the guy, yeah. Precious is the guy.
But I think at times the personnel around him limits him from actually being able to achieve what they would want him to do as like that dominant force, as the guy that could be that calming presence. Because when you can collapse on him and just completely, they can't get the ball to him. They can't throw entry passes. They struggle swinging the ball and getting the ball around to him on the post or off some cool. Penny has some actually pretty. If you watch off the ball, they have some very creative stuff to get Precious open under the basket. They just can't get the ball to him. And that is a problem. So are they going to be able to show Precious as that dominant force, or does somebody else need to emerge?
For Precious, with the whole Precious thing, and in terms of being the guy, you know, it's more about his position than anything else, in my opinion, because when you have a guard like Jeremiah Martin, you have a guy who can get his own shot, who shot the ball pretty well from the outside last year. And so it became easy, especially in situations where the shot clock is running down, to just give him the ball in the half-court offense and let him do his thing. And he was a good decision maker. He made smart passes. He scored at a high clip. Precious he's a big man. Like, he's a center on this team. That's not he's not playing the same role at all as Jeremiah Martin last year.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not Precious Achua's fault.
No.
Precious Achua has been just as dominant, if not more dominant, than Jeremiah Martin was last year.
I think that you still need somebody that you can go get an easy, somebody that needs to get an easy bucket when Tulsa's going on a
that was supposed to be James.
17-7 run. Okay, but it's supposed to be James. James isn't here. You have to figure it out.
That was supposed to be
At some point,
James.
the excuse has to be that it has to stop being that James isn't here. James isn't here. It's done. He's gone. It's over.
It's not an excuse.
Saying James isn't here.
It's just the reality of the situation.
Saying James isn't here isn't going to magically make him reappear or fix things.
Right. I agree. And I'm not, and there are, like I said, there are plenty of concerns moving forward. I'm just saying, in terms of the guy who was supposed to be like, all right, just throw him the ball and let him get us a basket when we really need a basket, it was supposed to be James. Now they got to figure out who it's going to be.
I think
it looks like it's DJ. Precious, but I think you're right. I think DJ is the best pure scorer on the team. Penny said he wants him to be a gunner, so he needs to shoot it a little bit more often. He's probably the answer, but the truth is they probably have to do it by committee because they don't really have a guard right now who's going to go out and score a ton of points. Tyler Harris can be that guy. He's just not consistent enough. It's like 2 games where he's getting you 17 and then the next game he's getting you 3. And that's just kind of who Tyler Harris is. And so you don't have a guard who can create like that. And that is definitely one of the most concerning things. The other concerning thing is that their post step just continues to be a problem. And Malcolm Dandridge looked lost in that matchup zone in Tulsa.
Yeah.
And I still think that he's probably the answer to to who you should use the most out of the post bigs. And it's not realistic that you can just play DJ and Precious the whole game. It's not realistic that you can play DJ, Precious, and Malcolm the whole game because Malcolm is coming off of major knee surgery and he's the biggest guy on the team. Like he's not, while he is a good shot blocker and rebounder, he's still not a guy that you're going to run out there for 30 plus minutes. That's just not a realistic expectation of him. And so you have to use, at least in limited minutes, Isaiah Maurice and Lance Thomas. But it just seems like when those guys get out on the floor, Memphis's effectiveness just plummets.
Yeah.
And so it's a matter of finding a way to get those guys a little bit of confidence, get them playing a little bit better, because those minutes where they were on the floor were really costly. Everybody was bad. It's not on them. Everybody was bad at Tulsa. But that's a problem.
The solution staring him in the face is one that Penny has said he hasn't wanted to do since the beginning of the season. It's simple, what he has to do or what he should do. You need to slide DJ to the 4. You need to slide Precious to the 5. Put Malcolm from the bench. Use him as your backup center. I mean, that is the best possible way to keep 2 guys off the floor who shouldn't be there. I mean, like I know he doesn't want to.
So, but in the grand scheme of things, that helps you for the first few minutes, sure. But you're still
you can stagger it and you can figure it out.
You're still running into the same problem. You can't just use those 3 guys the entire game. It's just not. It's not a realistic thing to do.
I think.
Do you think Penny would purposely? You think Penny wants to play ineffective players?
Yeah,
like that,
no, I know.
That's the thing that's nuts to me is that people act like this is a. I just want to be buddy and keep everyone's ego. That's not it. Penny, trust me, I don't think Penny would be playing these guys if he had a choice.
Yeah.
He just doesn't really have a choice right now.
So
his lineups are equally as baffling to me as they are to you and other people at times. But
you're sitting there and you're watching it. And
he's playing the guys he has to play.
Something that I know I'm armchair coaching and you're sitting here and it's easier to say this from the outside looking in, but I mean, I would look at playing Lester at the 4. Lester's, I think he's a solid. I think he could get in there and rebound if he wanted to. I know the big problem with DJ is that he's not as an effective rebounder as other guys. I don't know who else could play the 4 though, but you're gonna have he needs to start trying to. They need to find creative ways to get around this problem, or it's gonna keep biting them in the butt. Because I mean, realistically, what should they be playing? 8 guys, 7 guys.
Yeah, I mean, it should be honestly, it should be 8, but right now it has to be 9. It has to be cut to 9 because you're just going to be in trouble if it's not.
I get playing Jaden spot
and
minutes
saying
here
rotation
and there.
is one, like saying rotation versus the guys that are playing is one thing. Like if you're part of the rotation, you have, and I'm doing air quotes right now, you have a
That's
set,
just good radio.
You have a set plan of roughly how many minutes each guys are going to play. Now, if that are significant, like if Lance and Isaiah might be out of the rotation, or even Jaden might be out of the rotation, but they're still going to play a few minutes here and there because you just, you got to give guys some breaks. But they need to they need a more balanced, organized.
I mean, I know that people say this team was built around James, and it was, and I get it, but at some point there has to be some adapting. There has to be, okay, this isn't working. It isn't working what we're doing on offense. Let's not completely change it, because it is. It's unrealistic to change the offense completely midseason. But there are ways they could adapt. They could fix things. They could change where guys are shooting the ball. That's a big thing. Like, some guys are getting the ball in spots where they shouldn't. Some guys are dribbling when they shouldn't. They need a guard to attack the basket. That was a big thing against the zone. Like, they shot, 11 free throws? It's not enough. It's not enough against that Tulsa team.
2 for 21 from 3 against the zone.
They were settling.
Is going to bury you. Well, no, they got open looks from 3. Those were kind of the shots you want. You got to have the shooters to make them, and they just didn't have them.
So my big thing is starting Saturday against SMU, we will see if they are adapting.
We'll take a break now for a message from our sponsor.
The Daily Memphis Tigers podcast is brought to you by FedEx. Possibilities. What we deliver by delivering.
There comes a point in time where the offense continues to be more concerning. I guess my question is, where do you draw the line between being a great defensive team and needing offense so badly that you just sell out and just decide, all right, we're going to ride our defense that we currently have, and we got to find some answers on offense, because right now it seems like they're still working on that defense, and they did give up 80 points. Penny said that was the most embarrassing part of it all. But it just feels like it's a team that probably needs more work on the offensive end than they're putting in right now. To me, do they come across as a team like that to you?
Oh yeah, I mean, you watch them and it's like, offensively, it's the same stuff that was there in December. It seems like the same stuff that was there in November, and it's like at some point, it doesn't feel like they can run plays, and that may just be a function of they're younger. It's also a function of personnel, but. Like the thing with Mike Miller was sitting on the sideline. You tweeted about this. And what was he yelling every time somebody had the ball for too long?
Next.
Like, that is a very interesting way to get the ball to move around the court. But at some point, you also have to realize Mike Miller can't be behind the guys every single step of the way yelling for when to pass the ball. I think that's a sign of, it's an interesting little development that they did, but I don't know if were they doing that in Tulsa?
No, I mean, the ball movement wasn't where it was supposed to be. The way that it was described to me in terms of how what some of the problems are on offense, especially with the turnovers and the ball movement, because I asked around about this quite a bit. It's like, what is the solution? And a lot of it is about trying to make the easier play instead of the harder play, or even in times the smarter play. Because there's just too many times right now where the guys are driving and they're passing into windows that aren't really open, that they think are open, or they're trying to make the pass that ends up being an assist instead of trying to make the easy pass first.
Yeah.
And so that was a big problem. And that, what's part of what's frustrating is that was something that at his radio show, Penny talked about. Like, we know we have to work on offense. We're going to fix the turnovers. And it just hasn't been fixed. And there comes a point where, the players, it is on the players to an extent, but now this long into the season with the same problems occurring, like, there comes a point in time where the blame sort of does switch over to the coaching staff, in my opinion. And it's up to them to get it right.
So,
I still think this is all fixable. I don't think that this is, there's no reason to panic quite.
Oh
yet.
yeah, no, you're not. The hand isn't on the panic button. Like, it's hovering. You've cleared off the table. You made sure you knew where the panic button was, but it's not like you're smacking it just yet. But like, something nobody is talking about. I wanted to get your take on. I've waited all week to talk to you about this. Is what do you think
I'm
that
just
crowd?
a text away, Jonah.
What do you think that crowd is like on Saturday? How do you think the home fans react?
I think it's a good crowd. Look, this is still a team that when they show up on Saturday is going to be ranked in the top 25. Now, they won't be on Monday, but I mean, this is still a team that's going to the NCAA tournament. This is a team that you should be, if you're a Memphis fan, you should still be excited about this team, even after losing by 40 to Tulsa, because you haven't been in the tournament in a while. You still have a group of talented guys. You still have moments in the game where, where you could have exciting plays that you probably haven't had in years. You should still be excited about this team. And like I said, it's not too late to turn this around. It's not a mission by anyone to just. It's easy to grill them after losing by 40 points, right? But there's still time to turn it around. There is.
Yeah, no, there is for sure, and the season isn't over. But I think something you're starting to see right now is it's been 10 years of high expectations and no delivery. And there were extenuating circumstances this year, but at some point, I think fans are going to start throwing that guard up. Like if Memphis comes out on Saturday and say SMU wins by 20, wins by 15, I think you're going to see people start to get really frustrated, and I wouldn't necessarily blame them. But the reason I ask that is because we're getting at that time of the year where people start worrying about the payout for attendance. What do you know about that? What can you tell us?
Well, I expect that they'll probably get the partial. I haven't dug into it quite yet, but I expect that they'll likely get the partial payout. It is tough. There's a clause in Penny's contract. I don't know. I don't remember exactly what the number is. I want to say it's around 12,000, 10,000, or somewhere between 10 and 12,000. Fans in turnstile count that they have to average per game. So you got to look at it think about the Cotton Bowl game. There was no one in the building because everybody was at the Cotton Bowl. So that game's going to hurt you. It's going to bring your average down. I don't think they'll get the full payout, but I mean, the attendance has not been, it's not like it's been bad this year. It's been pretty good. So I expect they'll get the partial payout again like they did last year. They had a big attendance increase last year, and there's no Tennessee home game this year, so maybe it comes down just a tiny bit, but attendance has been good from the eyeball test.
Yeah, it's really past the eyeball test. I think Memphis fans have responded pretty well this year. Anything else you want to touch on? How's recruiting going?
It's still going. Jalen Green says he's playing college basketball, so as long as he says that, and as long as, and I've said this before, if the staff is intact, that's a question mark. Obviously, they have guys who are going to be hot commodities. If the staff is intact, then I still like their chances at Greg Brown, and I still like their chances at Jalen Green. And you get those two guys, and you're in pretty good shape. In other news, the new bracketology is out. Have you seen it?
No, what's it say?
Joe Lunardi's bracketology, which some people are adamant that Joe Lunardi is not the guy you should be paying attention to. But for the sake of discussion, he has Memphis as a 10 seed in Greensboro taking on Illinois. What do you think about that? Sound about right?
Sounds about right. It sounds fair considering everything that's happened, everything that's going on. It sounds about right. He knows what he's doing.
Right. TeamRankings.com, which is a nice analytics site. You should check it out. Actually, the guy who is, I believe, the owner or something, he's part of the management for that website, lives in East Memphis. But TeamRankings.com puts Memphis at a 61.7% chance of making the NCAA tournament this year. And as I mentioned before, with all their quadrant 1 and 2 opportunities still on the table and where they stand, that looks pretty much spot on to me. I wrote about that and sort of compared them to the bubble teams that ended up making it last year in the NCAA tournament, because right now they're still in search of some quality wins if they want to make it. There's still plenty of work to do, and we will see. SMU is going to be a bigger game than you might realize on Saturday because they've been really good this season. And from talking to people on staff, they're pretty concerned that they're not overlooking SMU. They know SMU is pretty good.
You're not at a position.
They have some transfers and some experienced players.
Yeah, you're not in a position anymore where you can overlook anybody.
Exactly.
It's just not, considering the brackets, considering
you probably
seeding.
Never were.
Honestly, yeah, but that's where we are now. We good for today?
Yeah, we're good for today. Any football news going on?
So Memphis is bringing in a transfer linebacker, Sincere Evans from Coastal Carolina. I don't think he'll be eligible right away. I think he may have to sit a year. We'll see how that shakes out over the next couple months. But they're very excited. They've got a bunch of kids, early enrollees on campus, ready to get spring going. I'm ready. I'm ready for spring football.
How far away are we? Do we know?
It should be sometime in March and April. I don't know. No official dates have really been set yet, so we'll see.
This might be is this going to be our last podcast before the Super Bowl, maybe? We might have one next week, but
do
you have an early Super Bowl pick?
49ers, of course.
Okay. I got the Chiefs.
Yeah,
so
you hate the Titans. So
just to be honest, my picks have been terrible.
Just dreadful.
That's probably a sign that if you're a betting man or woman, you should probably roll with the 49ers if I think the Chiefs are going to win. All right, that'll do it for us today. Thanks for joining us as always. This is Drew Hill, the Daily Memphis Tigers basketball beat writer. You can follow me on Twitter at DrewHill_DM. You can follow Jonah on Twitter at _Jonah Jordan. You can get this podcast or any other Daily Memphian podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or Google Play. Thanks for listening.
We deliver tickets, team merchandise, and everything you need for the game. But what you really get is so much more.
FedEx Delivery.
Game day spirit. What we deliver by delivering.
In-depth journalism in the Memphis community, the Daily Memphian is of Memphis, not just in Memphis, and seeks to tell the stories of this city. TheDailyMemphian.com. Truth in place.